Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and this week we are discussing the art of releasing all grudges for good. I wanted to discuss this topic specifically this week because last week's episode was about the art of prioritizing happiness. And last week we discussed the things that we can add to our life to increase our happiness on a daily basis. But part of prioritizing happiness and just experiencing happiness more often on a daily basis is letting go of things that we are holding on to, whether we are conscious of it or not, that is keeping us stuck emotionally. It's keeping us sad, hurt, in pain, bitter, resentful. And it's important that we bring this topic to light because it's something that I believe every single person experiences at one point in their life or another. And there's no shame in that. We've all experienced being betrayed or heartbroken or hurt without someone apologizing to us. And it is hard to forgive someone and release that pain and that hurt when it hasn't felt like things were fair or things were repaired in a way. Before we get into this topic more in depth, I just want to give you guys a heads up that there is some construction going on near my house. So if you hear some background noise, I apologize. I am trying my best to minimize it on my end, but I don't want it to hold me back from recording this week. So please bear with me. Hopefully it doesn't sound so bad. And next week, things will hopefully return back to normal quality. Before we dive right into the 3 questions that I've chosen for this topic, I want to just make a clear statement on what a grudge really entails. A grudge is any unresolved emotional attachment that we may have to what someone did to us, what they failed to do for us, what they said to us, what they caused in our lives, and possibly never apologized for. It doesn't really matter if it's something that's justifiable. It doesn't matter if it's not justified. We're really talking about any sort of grudge. It can be connected to real harm, disappointment, betrayal, disrespect, being abandoned, and also receiving a fake apology, because that is something that happens too. We can receive some sort of apology from someone that has wronged us in a way, and we could just feel that it wasn't honest, it wasn't clean, and so we're still holding on to it with some resentment. And sometimes a grudge is not fully conscious. We're not walking around thinking to ourselves, yeah, I have a grudge against so-and-so because they did this. But if we were to see them, if they were to come up in conversation, or just something were to remind us of them or the circumstances of that situation, we would remember that we don't feel good about this person and we don't feel at peace when they come to mind, because ultimately we are still carrying the pain of what was done to us. We might hope that they're going to right their wrongs by really taking accountability and making things up to us. And we can also just keep that memory alive, keep reminding ourselves of the pain that we experienced in the past, which it's tricky to really talk about that, because when you have been really hurt by someone, and this includes all the things we talked about, it can even be physical harm. When you've been hurt by someone, it's like a very deep wound. And when you have a deep wound, you don't want to be too harsh with someone and tell them, move on and get over it, because it's really not that simple. If it was that simple, they would have done it by now. But every time we retell the story of our pain, whether it's to ourselves or to someone else, what we're doing is we are digging our fingers back into the wound and we are hurting ourselves all over again, which is just going to make it take longer for it to heal. And we're going to discuss that more in depth throughout this episode. So please, I hope that I'm clear when I say this. I mean no offense to anybody. I mean no offense to anyone's experiences. I'm truly recording this episode with the most honest, purest intentions from the perspective of someone that has had a really hard time letting go of grudges. And I just really want to share my experience with overcoming them and releasing them so that anyone that's listening to this can feel a really big sense of relief in their life and feel as if a huge weight has been lifted from their shoulders. Because ultimately, that is what it feels like when you hold resentment and you carry a grudge. It's an emotional weight that you're carrying on your body, and it affects your physical body too. it can affect your posture, and it just affects your outlook on life. It is constantly weighing you down, no matter what, before you even start your day. Now, there are some misconceptions when it comes to releasing a grudge. Sometimes we're a little hesitant to release a grudge because we think that by letting it go and forgiving the actions that someone did, we're saying that what they did was okay and that they can do it again, or that someone else can do it again to us, that it didn't hurt and it didn't affect us for a long time. We might assume that it means that we have to open ourselves up to this person again. We have to trust them and let them back into our lives, or that we have to pretend that it didn't matter and that it never hurt us, or we need to accept any fake half-assed apology we may have received. None of that is true. That is not what releasing a grudge is about. It has nothing to do with the other person, surprisingly. It is simply just deciding that someone else's actions doesn't get to bring us down anymore. They don't get to hurt us longer than they already did. Because when we carry that grudge, we keep that hurt alive and we keep hurting ourselves after the event itself has happened. Let's get into the first question. Why should we even consider letting go of grudges or any resentment that we hold? There's a few reasons. One, it hurts us to hold on to resentment. It poisons us. It keeps us tied to the other person. It keeps the pain active and alive, which means anytime we experience any little bit of pain, it's going to be magnified because we still have past wounds that we haven't healed. It ends up affecting our identity. We don't want to believe that we are a victim in our own life. And that is a touchy subject. I did cover that topic a year ago, the art of destroying the victim mentality. And I think I'm going to cover it again because it's so important if you want to be happy in life. It's important that we do not adopt a victim mentality, because when we do, we end up attracting more experiences that make us feel helpless in our own lives. And I get it. I get that life does happen. There are things that we all experience that are painful, that are chaotic, and they are out of our control. So in a sense, yes, it does feel like we are a victim. But at the same time, what we do in response to these circumstances is where we take our power back. And that's how we climb out of that victim mentality. We are not what has happened to us. We are how we react to what has happened to us. So that decision is all up to us. If we decide that our story ends with, we were hurt, we were harmed, then that's all our story is ever going to be. If we want more for ourselves, if we want to create a life for ourselves that is so enjoyable that we don't even remember half of the things that we've experienced because we've risen above it, then we have the choice to do that as well. But we have to take action towards it. It's not something that's going to passively happen in our life. We're not just going to magically let go of a grudge, and we're not just going to effortlessly release resentment towards people. It doesn't work that way. It has to be a conscious choice that we're making. And it's usually going to happen while we still feel the pain of the wound. Think about a real wound. If you were to cut yourself on your leg, when you are about to put a Band-Aid over it, it's still very painful. You have to disinfect it with rubbing alcohol, and that stings, perhaps more than actually getting hurt. And then you put the Band-Aid over it, and maybe while you're walking, you feel it, it's uncomfortable, it hurts, and you keep remembering that it hurts because you feel it every time you walk. But eventually, the pain decreases slowly but surely. That's exactly how it works when we decide to let go of a grudge. Just because we make that active decision to forgive the actions of another person, it doesn't mean that instantly we're going to feel better. No, it's going to sting because we're going to have to face the reality of what happened again and choose to take care of it, address it head on, and then we're going to have to be patient as it slowly heals. There is another episode that I posted last year, I believe. It's called The Art of Outgrowing Blame, where I dive more into how to not even allow yourself to blame other people for things that they do to you, even if it feels like a personal attack. And I really recommend that if that is something that you struggle with, because I know that I've definitely struggled with it, and I talk about it on that episode, because ultimately that's how it starts. It starts by playing that blame game, making other people responsible for how we feel. And then when we don't check that side of ourselves, it turns into a grudge and resentment. and it builds up and it festers and it ends up hurting us, like we mentioned. So I definitely recommend you check that out if you're interested. Something very interesting about the episode The Art of Outgrowing Blame is that it's one of my top listened to episodes, which makes me so happy because it tells me that those of you listening have so much wisdom and self-awareness that you already know that blaming others is not serving you. Because to even click on such an episode, you already have that desire to outgrow blame, whether you listen to the whole entire episode or not. So that's really cool. I appreciate you guys. I'm really happy that that is an episode that a lot of you gravitate towards. And yeah, maybe that will inspire some of you to listen to it if you haven't already. The bottom line is a grudge can be justified. You can have every reason to be upset with someone, to not want to forgive someone, but it can still be destructive. It can still be hurting you tremendously in the process. And you really have to get honest with yourself and ask yourself, what is more important? Being justified in your hurt and holding that against another person, or taking care of yourself, saving yourself from self-destructing, which sounds very extreme. I get that. But internally, that's what you're doing. Your emotional world is being destroyed from all this negativity that you're holding on to. Something can be true, painful, unfair, but it's still not worth carrying in your heart forever, because you deserve to be happy, and not just a little happy. You deserve to be as happy as possible, as often as possible. And it's just very hard to do that when you're still holding that resentment. Let's get into the next question. Why does holding on to grudges or resentment hurt us more than the other person? This is a great question because I remember when I was 18, I believe, around, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, I Googled how to let go of a grudge, which is so funny, but really cute if I really think about it. I don't remember who I had a grudge against at the time. I know that it definitely felt justifiable, but I realized this person is just living their life oblivious to the fact that every time I hear their name, see their face, I'm like raging inside. And it bothered me because why do I care so much? Why is this bringing me down so much? And they are living their best life. They're so happy. That's when it clicked for me that I'm really hurting myself more than anybody else by carrying this hurt. I'm like in this dark cloud and they're in the sun. And the truth is, the reason why it hurts us more than the other person, it's not because they necessarily deserve to be happier than us. Of course not. We all have equal value. We all deserve everything, ultimately, but they feel less hurt than we do from the situation because they're probably not thinking about it as much as us. They probably moved on from it and forgave themselves for what they did. They may not care, honestly. They may not even know how deeply they've affected us. We're the ones that keep replaying it. We keep triggering ourselves emotionally every time we keep replaying it. So our nervous system is attached to it, which means we're carrying that stress in our body on a daily basis. And we know what stress does to the body. It's almost like we're inflaming ourselves internally. I think I heard something somewhere, but don't quote me on it, that when we allow stress to accumulate so much, especially from an emotional standpoint, that is how we can start to develop an autoimmune disease. Like the body will start to attack itself because it's so dysregulated, because our nervous system is hyperactive trying to manage the intensity of our emotions that we are not releasing. On top of that, we become more guarded, which I know all about. And one of my recent episodes, The Art of Loving Without Guarding Your Heart, I talk about that. We become more guarded. We start to keep walls up with people. We don't trust people, which sounds smart on the surface level, but what we're doing is we're just keeping all of the love out, love from ourselves and love from other people. It's like we're building a wall around our heart so nothing can get in and nothing can come out, which can make us feel more bitter towards life, more pessimistic, more suspicious of other people when they do have good intentions. We lose that softness, and ultimately what we're doing is we're giving them a piece of our heart and they stay there forever. We let what they did and how they hurt us stay in our heart, and we keep it there. We keep that space just for them instead of letting it go and replacing it with love from another person, from ourselves. Now, how does it show up? How are we hurting ourselves proactively when we are holding these grudges and resentment? It can be internal. We could be mentally replaying the scenario or conversations with people that triggered us in relation to whatever it is that happened to us. We can imagine scenarios of what we should have said differently, what we could have done differently, what the other person should have said differently, or what they could have done differently. We can fantasize about the other person realizing they were wrong and apologizing to us in the way that we want to be apologized to. We can be still waiting for an authentic apology. We can be checking on them to see if karma got them for what they did to us. We can have this desire for them to really understand our pain and really get what they did to us and how they affected us. We can also unknowingly project this pain that we're carrying onto new relationships with other people. And without realizing, we're making other people pay for our wounds that we've never healed. And these are all things to really take into consideration because they're very subtle and it's very easy to slip into these things and get carried away by these thoughts. This is going to be a weird analogy, but I remember when I was younger, if I ever got a bruise, sometimes I would just press on the bruise. It kind of felt good. Maybe that was just me being strange as a kid. So be it. But sometimes we do that with our wounds and the things that have hurt us. Sometimes we just press on them here and there just to see if it still hurts. Don't do that with your grudges. Let them heal. Sometimes I think we are so used to feeling hurt that it can feel weird not to feel it, but really challenge that side of yourself. Why do you want to feel hurt if you don't have to? Ultimately, when a person hurts us, it happens in a moment of time, but we extend that hurt. We extend that moment every single time we decide to hold a grudge. Something that I remember reading when I was seriously trying to get to the bottom of releasing all grudges that I've held in my life was learning that holding a grudge feels like power. It feels like proof that we have a reason to be upset about life. We have a reason to be sad. We have a reason to be angry. But it just keeps us attached to that negative emotion. Yes, of course, everyone has reasons to be angry and sad and upset and mad at life and the world, but you don't want that to be your personality. You don't want that to be the sum of who you are, your main focus. That's a very low vibrational energy. It doesn't feel good when we're angry and sad. It might only feel good for a little bit because perhaps when you were younger, you didn't get to express those emotions. But once you allow yourself to feel them, anger, sadness, you realize you don't want to be there forever. It's too heavy. It's too dark. It's like being in a basement with no light. That's what holding a grudge can do to ourselves emotionally. We keep ourselves emotionally in the dark and we make it hard to access the light, our light, and the light of other people that are trying to help us, and the parts of ourselves that is trying to help us get out of this dark place emotionally. One other point I want to mention is that sometimes resentment can feel like self-respect. It's how we are showing ourselves that we understand that we were hurt and that we were wronged, and we're not going to let someone get away with mistreating us and walking all over us, which I get, but real self-respect is refusing to keep hurting yourself over someone else's actions, which we had no control over. Why would we allow something that someone else did to us bring us down for so long? Are they worth it? The answer is no, but perhaps journal on that. You'd be surprised with what you already know. Let's get into our last question. How do we actually release a grudge or resentment, especially when it feels justified? First things first, be honest about what happened. Because releasing a grudge is not about brushing it off, minimizing it. Don't you dare. Be very honest. Let everything be out in the open. I always recommend journaling. So if you do decide today to release a grudge that you are holding towards someone, write out exactly what they did that really hurt you. And don't leave out any details. Every single thing. Because we need to look at the whole entire wound so that we can heal it and it can heal completely. Also, we need to make sure that on top of us not minimizing what happened, we're not exaggerating it either. Don't start adding details that didn't happen. What do I mean by this? We don't know what the other person was thinking while they did what they did. This is something that I have to check myself on. Sometimes I really think that I know what's going on in someone else's head, but that is me assuming. So if that is something that you do too, just make sure you're not assuming the thoughts and the intentions behind someone else's actions. Just focus on what they actually did and how it made you feel. Next, accept that what happened cannot be changed. Even if we were to receive an amazing apology, it does not change that we were hurt, that what they did happened. We can grieve about that. We can grieve about the hurt that we felt. We should grieve it, actually. Allow ourselves to feel sad for that version of ourselves that was hurt for so long. And we should allow ourselves to feel sad for the version of ourselves that held on to it for whatever reason. Maybe because that version of us felt like we were protecting ourselves. Grieve that version of yourself too. It's important to release the need for anybody to understand how we feel about what we experienced. Take full responsibility for this healing, meaning if this person comes up in conversation again, if this experience comes up in your mind again, instead of getting mad about it because you're trying to heal it and it keeps resurfacing, take responsibility that this is a part of the healing, getting less reactive when the wound is getting triggered. And eventually, you will be so conscious of it that you'll know better than to let it affect you emotionally on a deep level. And lastly, if you are open to it, pray for help. This is something that I learned in Kabbalah, which really transformed the way that I looked at prayer. I grew up very religious, Orthodox religious, so praying for me was pretty routine and very structured. There were specific prayers that I had to say, and it wasn't in English, so I never really felt connected to it, which doesn't mean that they weren't powerful prayers. I just personally felt like I was just saying gibberish, honestly. But I learned recently that you can always pray in your own words at any time of the day. No matter what you're doing, you don't have to be in a synagogue. You don't have to be in a church. You don't have to be in a mosque to pray. You can pray in your bed. You can pray while you're walking to the store. You can pray while you're on a train. It doesn't matter. God is always listening. And in my experience, God listens the quickest when we ask for help to overcome challenges in our life that will make us a better version of ourselves. So for example, I always say, God, please give me the strength and the clarity to rise above blame. I don't want to blame other people, but it's hard for me and I'm going to work on it. But I also want you to help me. I want you to make it a little bit easier for me, please. Something like that. So you could say the same thing with a grudge. God, please give me the strength and clarity to release this grudge against so-and-so. It's hard for me, but I really want to do it. I don't want to hold on to a grudge. And watch how within a week, you're going to notice such a difference. You're going to feel more willpower. You're going to feel like something came over you and gave you that strength to overcome what used to be so hard for you. And honestly, this is one of my secret tools, honestly. And it's not a secret. I share everything that I do and I share everything that I learned with you guys because I don't gatekeep. But this is really something that works and it works quickly. You can always ask God for help. Don't ever feel like you're asking for too much or you need to be more devoted to God in a traditional sense to pray to Him. That's not how it works. That's a religion-based way of thinking. And God is above religion, in my opinion. So to summarize, I'll give you a few steps. First, step 1, tell the truth. Say what happened, what hurt, what did I need that I did not receive, what am I still waiting for, what do I wish they understood, and what am I afraid it means about me. Step 2, separate the event from the identity. What happened is something that I experienced. It does not have to become who I am. It isn't who I am. It doesn't decide how open I am. It doesn't decide how I treat other people. And it doesn't have to become the lens I see life through. Step 3, release the need for them to participate. They may never apologize. They may never understand. They may never take accountability. They may not have the consciousness to see what they did. And still, we can release ourselves from our attachment to the hurt that we feel from that experience with them. Step 4, choose what the experience gets to teach you. Choose the meaning it has in your life. Is it going to give you stronger boundaries with other people, with yourself? Is it going to give you better discernment? Is it going to give you more self-trust, less people-pleasing, less explaining, less attachment to being understood, more direct communication, or more compassion for your current self and past versions of yourself? Step 5, stop feeding the grudge. Stop replaying the story in your mind unnecessarily. And also, if this person comes up in conversation, even if someone asks you specifically, how come you don't talk to so-and-so? Or did something happen with you and this person? Don't even feed into it. Rise above it because you are healing the wound for good. You're not interested in opening it up and starting from scratch. Do not check in on this other person. Do not mentally argue with them. If you do, for whatever reason, retell the story, of what happened, make sure you say it in a way that doesn't trigger you. So don't go into those certain details that you know is very painful for your own sake, not to minimize what happened, but so that you can fully heal. Do not use the hurt that you experienced as proof that you cannot trust life and that you cannot trust other people. And do not let their behavior decide who you become. I also want to mention that just because we release a grudge doesn't mean that we necessarily let this person off the hook, meaning we can forgive the actions of another person and still decide that we don't want this person in our life. But it's not coming from a bitter place, it's coming from a place of discernment. And that's perfectly fine. I've done that personally. I believe that I have forgiven everybody in my life for anything that has hurt my feelings and everything that has hurt my feelings. But that doesn't mean that just because I am doing that as quickly as possible, that I'm letting them come back into my life as quickly as possible. And also, this is not something that you automatically become an expert in. I've gone through situations with certain people where I did feel hurt by them, then I reconnected with them, and then the same situation happened again. And I realized, whoa, what's going on? How did I experience the same thing twice? I thought releasing the grudge meant that we were good, but you live and you learn. Some relationships, it's possible, yes. You release a grudge, and if you feel in your heart that you want to reconnect, then you go for it. But just be open to both possibilities. Sometimes reconnection is a great idea, and sometimes it's just not. Now, I usually only get into 3 questions, but for this topic, I really felt like adding this last question in. I feel like it's very important. And it's simply, what are the benefits of releasing grudges from other people? You know me and my lists. I love to just give you a lot of motivation to do something. So here we go. On a personal level, the benefits are you experience more peace, it restores your energy, you have more emotional freedom, you feel less bitterness in your life, you're less reactive to your triggers, you feel softer, you have more room in your heart for joy, you experience better relationships because you're attracting more healed people. That doesn't mean that you're attracting people that were never hurt in life. If anything, it's the opposite. You attract people that were just like you, people that learned to let go of grudges just like you, which is beautiful. You receive clearer intuition. You learn how to have stronger boundaries. You learn to have less emotional attachment to the past. You have more capacity to receive good things. You develop more self-respect, and you can also develop more trust in God and more trust in your own healing, your own process. It's so important that as you're living your life, you respect that your healing takes time. You can't rush it. You can't read a book. You can't listen to a podcast episode and think that when you finish it, you'll feel so much better. No, we know this. Think about the example that we've been using. If you cut yourself and you're bleeding and you put that alcohol on and then you put on a band-aid, it still hurts. And depending on how deep the wound is, it'll hurt for quite some time. But you don't start getting angry with yourself or judging yourself for why your body's not healing. You know it's a process. So respect that process with yourself, especially with something like this, because grudges and resentment, it's a deep wound. Now, something beautiful to keep in mind about releasing grudges and releasing any resentment we hold towards another person is that not only does it benefit us on a personal level, it benefits the world. And there's a quote on this. I just searched it up. It says, transform yourself to transform the world, which was said by Grace Lee Boggs. Cool. But ultimately, in order to change the world, make the world a better place, a happier place, a more healed place, you need to do it on a personal level. So every time that you release a grudge, you release resentment, and you basically starve the negativity that you feel and the bitterness that you feel, that reduces the negativity and the bitterness that exists in the world on a global scale. So I'm just going to list some benefits that occur on a global level when we release these grudges. The world will experience less projection, less blame, less unnecessary conflict, less punishment of people who did not cause the wound, more compassion in the world, more accountability, more emotional maturity, more peace in relationships, and more healing pass forward instead of pain pass forward, which honestly, I don't know about you guys, but my feed is flooded with so many people that have done this inner work, that are just spreading what they know. And I feel very fortunate to live in a time where that's the case. It seems small to release a grudge, but just remember your healing affects the collective. When one person stops living through resentment, they stop spreading resentment. When one person heals, they parent differently, they love differently, and they lead differently. They communicate differently, they forgive differently, and they stop making innocent people pay for old pain. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. I really am happy that I discussed this topic on the podcast. It's definitely more heavy, but I'm a Scorpio, so I love to talk about the more darker topics in life. I think it's important, but I also like to balance it out with lighter topics like last week, prioritizing happiness. So I hope you enjoyed. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this topic. As always, you can reach me at She is Artfully Woman on Threads and Instagram. I would love to hear from you, and don't be shy ever. Please follow this podcast if you haven't followed yet, and share this podcast with a friend, family member, anyone that you think would benefit from hearing this. I love you all. I hope you have an amazing week. Until next episode, bye for now.